since industrial action began in December. Chief Secretary to the Treasury, John Glenn, insists a 6% uplift given to junior doctors is fair. He says the government won't take part in any more talks.
What we cannot have is an inflationary pay increase. Before we broke for the recess, we settled all the pay disputes based on the pay review bodies. And, for example, the teachers accepted the pay review body recommendation, as the government did, and are no longer striking. So I regret very much that the doctors have chosen to strike again. I totally recognise that this has a negative impact on patients' experience.
West Yorkshire Police says the autistic girl arrested by police for making an alleged homophobic remark will face no further action. A warning some viewers may find the following footage distressing. Well, she's now been released, but this video circulating on TikTok shows a 16-year-old autistic girl being detained by 7 officers outside her home in Leeds that prompted a complaint. It's understood she told her mother that one of the police officers looked like her grandmother, who's a lesbian. The teenager had been arrested on suspicion of a homophobic public order offence, but the force says it will take on board any lessons to be learned after the footage of the arrest sparked criticism on social media. Surrey Police says three people detectives want to speak to in connection with the murder of a 10-year-old girl in Woking left the UK on Wednesday. The girl was found dead in the early hours of yesterday morning after police were alerted to a concern for safety. A US judge has warned Donald Trump not to make inflammatory statements about the 2020 election case. The federal judge gave the former US president leeway to publicly share some non-sensitive evidence that will be used in his trial on charges of plotting to overturn the 2020 presidential election. But the judge also since made the protective order warning. Trump's attorneys argue the scope of the order is too broad and affects his free speech rights. The death toll from wildfires in Hawaii have risen to at least 55 as it grapples with the worst natural disaster in the state's history. The blazes have reduced much of the resort city of Lahaina to smouldering ruins. It's one of 3 major fires still ravaging the island of Maui. Entire neighbourhoods have been burnt to the ground as dry conditions and strong winds complicate efforts to bring the fires under control. And finally, the King has reshuffled military appointments for working members of the royal family as the anniversary of the late Queen's death nears. King Charles takes over 8 of his mother's former honorary posts himself. The reshuffle sees Prince William take command of Harry's old army unit as Colonel-in-Chief of the Army Air Corps. The Princess of Wales has been given 3 new roles, one of which is Commodore-in-Chief of the Fleet Air Arm. That's a title previously held by Prince Andrew. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by simply saying play GB News.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World, and tonight I'm joined by Simon Danchuk, ex-Labour MP. We've also got Emma Best, who today is our right in the corner. She's the Deputy Leader of the Conservatives in London and sits on the London Assembly. Simon,
good to be
places
here.
This time. You're back by popular demand.
Yeah.
Rwanda.
Yeah.
Now, I saw recently that you've got married in Rwanda to a lovely young lady out there.
Correct, yeah.
So it begs the question, is Rwanda a safe, developing, decent country?
Absolutely. It's a really decent country. It's one of the safest countries in the world. I've been there several times. I own a home there. I spend many weeks out there. And as I say, it's very safe. It's got a good developing economy. So there's no reason why you couldn't send illegal immigrants there.
So why is it, do you think, Simon, that certain sections of our society and politicians say it's a cruel and wicked thing to do, to send people who are asylum seekers to Rwanda?
I think the people on the left in politics are being ideological about it. They would prefer open borders for the UK. So any reason that they can come up with for not sending people out of this country, they will come up with it. But I have to say, some people on the left are verging on being racist about how they talk about Rwanda, because the reality is that it's a very developed country. People call it the Switzerland of Africa. They already take refugees on behalf of the United Nations from Libya. So there's a good argument for sending people there, no doubt about it.
Emma, you're our first ever right in the corner, so not to leave you out, Rwanda. You've heard what Simon's got to say. Do you think there's any problems, or have you got any problems with sending illegal migrants or asylum seekers to Rwanda for a fresh start?
Well, I actually think Simon's hit the nail on the head right there. And the way some on the left have talked about Rwanda is disgusting. And I have no idea what that must do to people over in Rwanda, hearing people in our country talk about their country in that way. Is there some problems with the scheme? Yes, I think perhaps in the way that we've processed the agreement and the bill, is it a great deal? Is it going to work? Perhaps there's a few things that need to be ironed out. And I will say one thing that I am concerned about is the safety of those that are LGBT asylum seekers, and making sure that they are definitely respected when they're in Rwanda. But overall, look, let's look at what the left want to do. Do they want to stop people making dangerous crossings, risking their lives? We've seen the devastating consequences of that in the last couple of days. Do they actually care about that? Do they actually want to see that stop? Because we need a policy that addresses that and saves lives. And I think Rwanda goes some way to doing that.
So, Simon, Emma's got a few concerns, not many. Overall supports the idea. How can you address those concerns?
Yeah, well, she mentioned the issue about LGBT. There are no issues. There's no legislation in Rwanda that says you can't be gay or anything like that. Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, has said, made it quite clear, he's not interested as the person leading the country. He's not bothered about what's going on in the bedroom. This is quite literally what he said. His focus is on growing the economy, running a strong, stable democracy. And so that's what he focuses on. So that allays that fear. People that go out there will have opportunities. There's no doubt about it. It's a growing economy, but they will have to pull the socks up and get on with it. It won't be. And what we should remember, Lee, is that we aren't under an obligation in the UK to send these people to somewhere that's the same as the UK. That if they are fleeing violence and war, then Rwanda is a safe place to go. All we have to do is provide somewhere safe to go.
So, Emma, I'm going to come back to you. So, you've heard what Simon's had to say. Sound like a great country, a go-to country. So why do you think some of these illegal migrants, and I refuse to use the term asylum seekers, it's illegal migrants, you know, if they want to play the asylum system, why aren't they travelling to places like Rwanda instead of making that perilous journey to the UK?
Yeah, I think that's the question that everybody's asking, isn't it, really? About, you know, if you're fleeing from war and you're looking for a safe country, why be so resistant to go to a safe country? And I think that's what comes back to with our own asylum seeker system, is we need to make sure that we're processing claims for a legal route for people that, for reasons of perhaps family or some other reason, require settlement in the UK. And actually, these illegal crossings are making it really difficult for us to do that. And so I think going to Rwanda as a safe country, and I think that's the question, isn't it? And I think it could only be answered by those people who are saying that they don't want to go to Rwanda. I don't think that's a question that we can answer, because we can look at Rwanda. Simon's just got married there, so knows better than anyone. It's a safe and welcoming country.
Well, there you go. So we're going to move on slightly now, Simon, to ULEZ. That's been in the news over the past, well, it's always in the news, it seems to be. Now, Emma, you sit on the London Assembly, so you would have been involved in this debate over the past few weeks. Is it a good thing? Do the people of London and the surrounding areas want the expansion? And how's it going to affect people in their pocket?
Well, they absolutely do not want it. I think that Sadiq Khan's own consultation showed 66% of people were against it. When you expanded that to outer London, you're looking closer to 80%, looking at businesses closer to 80%. There's tradespeople here who are suffering. They have no idea how they're going to continue a business after this month. And what you're doing with ULEZ is you're not tackling air pollution. This is the fundamental point, The TfL's own assessment of ULEZ said it will have a negligible impact on particulates. Particulates are actually the most dangerous form of air pollution that can get into your blood vessels. It will have negligible impact. There will be no effect. But what it will do, and this is what the TfL impact assessment picked up, is it will hit low-income Londoners, it will hit disabled Londoners.
So, Simon, you're an ex-Labour MP.
Yeah.
What would you be saying to Sadiq Khan now if you still sat in Parliament?
Well, I would be saying that he needs to row back from it. I think it's a step too far. I think we should say thank you to the people of Uxbridge in that by-election, because in many ways it was a referendum on ULEZ, and the people there said, listen, we might not be very happy with the government, but we're certainly very unhappy with ULEZ. And so that means that we need to think again about it. It creates a bit of an issue for Starmer as well, doesn't it? Keir Starmer. He has a very green agenda with Ed Miliband sat behind him, pushing all the green issues. But he has, at the same time, if he wants to get into government, he has to take people with them. And this is clearly a revenue-raising policy. And that's what it's about with Khan. What's that going to do for Starmer and Khan's relationship? I think we'll have to see.
Well, final word to Emma. Emma, I go to London on a weekly basis, and I would sooner walk it from St Pancras to Westminster than get on the Underground, because when you get on the Underground, the fumes, it's toxic, it's horrible, it's dirty, it's smelly. Why isn't Khan tackling that?
Would you believe it that he doesn't have any interest? So we've actually scrutinised him on this on the London Assembly, and he doesn't want to talk about that. He'll talk about the road pollution, which actually, if you look at the measurements in outer London, for the vast majority of air quality, it's good in outer London. What he won't talk to you about is the fact that people are breathing filthy air on our tube. And that is something that he is directly responsible for. So lo and behold, does he want to talk about it? Absolutely not.
So I guess he's taking the easy option.
Well, he's taking an option. Is it easy? I don't know. But I think because he's getting a lot of backlash from every single section of society. But I think, and this is a point Simon may disagree with, I think this speaks to the wider issue with Labour, is I think they're so ideologically driven, and I think they're sometimes so set in an ideological way that they will not listen to normal people on the ground. And when normal people have to pay the price for policy decisions, I think people in the echelons of Labour don't care.
I don't think Simon's actually disagreeing with you, Emma. I've seen a couple of nods
I think
there.
I mean that on a wider point, actually, though. I think I mean this when it comes to all policy, and actually going back to Rwanda, I think this is the same sort of thing as well.
That's fascinating stuff. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Simon. So now we're going to move to the yes-no quiz, where I'll be joined by Simon Danchuk and Emma Best. The yes or no quiz. This is where my guests get the chance to answer honestly. You can try it at home if you want. Get your pen and paper out. We're going to move straight to it, Simon.
Okay.
It's not rocket science. They're not hard questions. Yes or no. Can a woman have a penis?
No.
Emma.
You're not going to like this, Lee.
Look, it's a yes or no quiz.
Yeah, yes if they're a trans woman. No if they're a biological woman.
So that's a no, non-answer.
No, if they're a trans woman, yes.
No. All right, question number 2, Emma. This is for you.
Yep.
Remember, it is yes or no. Okay. Should illegal migrants who refuse first-class accommodation in the UK go back to France?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Is Rwanda a safe country?
Yes. So I do get it. It's just the first.
Oh, it's a yes or no? It's a yes or no.
get it.
Okay, you get that.
Yes, absolutely.
Simon, do you support the expansion of ULEZ?
No, then.
It's a yes or no, Simon.
Well,
it's a yes or no.
It's no, I don't. No.
Okay, that's quite simple. I think.
Biggest no I could give you.
Okay. Right, last question. I'm sure GB New viewers will be happy with this one. Should the BBC be a subscription service? Sam?
I do. I think it should. I've always said that. Yeah, I think it's a draconian tax on people. Yeah.
Emma?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That was quite simple, wasn't it? It was simple at the beginning, wasn't it, Emma? There's a little bit of confusion at the beginning. So yes or no quiz?
Yeah. No, do you know what? I think but there's some questions in life that are difficult, right? And I think right now that particular question around can a woman have a penis has a lot of connotations that I think is very divisive in our society. Yeah. And so I think sometimes it isn't a helpful question.
We're going to leave that there because the penis question comes up every week and it does confuse some people. Well, there you go. That wasn't too difficult, was it? 5 points each in my reckoning. So they both answered all the questions, yes or no. Simple, really, isn't it, guys? But coming up next, we've got Steve Nallon, who's the voice of the Iron Lady from Spitting Image back in the 90s. Do not go away.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Greg Dewhurst, and looking at the weekend, be summarised by sunshine and scattered showers, particularly heavy on Saturday. And looking at the bigger picture, we can see why this area of low pressure moves in for the weekend, increasing the wind strengths, increasing the risk of showers across the north and the west in particular. Out there through the rest of Friday evening, not too bad. There'll be some clear spells before dusk, and then overnight we'll see some outbreaks of rain pushing in across parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, which could be heavy at times. Temperatures generally a little lower than recent nights, so a little more comfortable for sleeping, but still 14 or 15 for many to start Saturday morning. Better the sunshine first thing across eastern parts of England, northeast Scotland. But these bands of rain slowly push their way eastwards through the day as the area of low pressure pushes in from the Atlantic. Some of this rain could be heavy and perhaps thundery at times across northern England, but there will be some sunny spells in between, and that will lift temperatures to around 23 degrees towards the southeast. Breezier conditions towards the northwest here, 20 or 21 as a maximum temperature. Into Sunday, low pressure still in charge. The winds do ease and there will be less showers around, but fairly cloudy picture. Some bright or sunny spells, a scattering of showers, and temperatures once again reaching the high teens to low 20s. Into the beginning of next week, it stays unsettled. Further rain on Monday, but signs of something drier and brighter by Tuesday.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
At 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help
So my next guest is a voice you'll probably all know well. Might not recognise him in the street, but you'll certainly recognise some of the impressions he does. It's Steve Nallon, who worked for Spitting Image back in the 80s and 90s, doing some great impressions. The Iron Lady was one where it is.
Oh, goodness me, how very kind of you to mention. And may I just say how marvellous it is to be able to be here today and talk down to you.
Thank you, Steve. It's like Maggie's back in the room. So I guess, Steve, similar sort of age, growing up in the 70s, who did you draw your inspiration from to do these impressions?
Oh, impressions, that was Mike Yarwood.
Yeah.
You know, because the thing about Mike Yarwood was nobody had ever done political impressions before. He was the first one to do it. And of course, in those days, it would have been Harold Wilson, who many people may remember. And he did a brilliant Harold Wilson, and he also did James Callaghan as well, who was late Prime Minister in the late 1970s. And the thing that I loved about Mike Yarwood was that he could take people who weren't funny and make them funny. And that's how I started, because on a Monday morning when you'd come to school, I mean, everybody would have watched Mike Yarwood on the Friday or the Saturday. And a guy said to me, he said, I can do Brian Clough when I hold my nose. And I said to him, well, that's interesting, because I can do Brian Clough without holding my nose. And they said, how do you do that? I said, I don't know. And then I sort of realised that, you know, that you just move your voice to your nose and stuff like that, but I could just learn how to do it.
So he makes people laugh.
He makes people, well, you know, he took people like Brian Clough, football manager, was at Derby County and then Leeds United.
And my team, Forest.
And Forest, don't forget Forest, and European Cups and all the rest of it. But Mike Yarwood took people and made them funny. And politicians, one of my favourite politicians of that era was Dennis Healey.
Yes,
now, Dennis Healey was a bruiser. He was a tough man. But Mike Yarwood turned him into this sort of avuncular character who said, what a silly Billy. Now, and of course, what Dennis Healey did was he turned his own character into the lovable, affable uncle that Mike Yarwood had created for him. But that wasn't real.
Yeah.
And the other thing you realise, you know, looking back on programmes like Spitting Image, it's all about perception.
It is. But don't you think, you look at Mike Yarwood, he did a great Larry Grayson impression, by the way, Mike Yarwood did. But in the 70s, Mike Yarwood doing these impressions, they were kind, they were a send-up. But you fast forward a few years to Spitting Image, they're a little bit nastier, a bit more cutting, a bit more...
Well, here's the thing about it, because I worked with Mike Yarwood, lovely guy. And, you know, he would get a script in and it would be about somebody he knew.
Yeah.
You know, he said, oh, I can't do that, he's my mate. I play golf with him, I can't do a gag about him. So he was restricting that. With Spitting Image, it was the opposite. Spitting Image came along and... The intention of Spitting Image, what a dreadful programme, I do wish people had not have watched it, was to offend. That was the whole point. And, you know, we forget that the purpose of Spitting Image... We wanted people to be angry and upset.
When you're doing that impression of Margaret Thatcher, you actually look like her as well.
Oh, goodness me. Well, technically, you have to change the way you physically sit and move in order... That's how I got the job, because I met the producer, John Lloyd, and I said to him, I'm not going to do an audition, but I said, I'll improvise a question and answer. You ask me a question and I'll answer it. And his eyes lit up as soon as I did.
God, that's spooky. That's spooky.
And that's what you change your face, and you have to change your face. And you have to do that in order to create where the voice comes from.
So do you find yourself slipping into that sort of voice when you're...
Not Mrs. Thatcher, no. I'm happy to do Mrs. Thatcher.
You know, when you're in the house doing something, mowing the lawn, whatever, do you slip into these voices?
Occasionally, but not Mrs. Thatcher. I think my favourite voice to do... she's slightly forgotten now, but I did do her on Spitting Image to a degree. The lovely Beryl Reid, who many people will remember.
Yes, I remember Beryl Reid, yeah.
And Beryl, she had the most lovely voice, very warm and very friendly. And I remember going up to John Lloyd and saying, I've got an idea. He said, you know, what voices have you done? I said, I've got Beryl Reid. I've got an idea. Beryl Reid had a character she did called Marlene. And the character of Marlene was sort of from the Black Country and spoke like that. And so I said, wouldn't it be a good idea if we had sort of Beryl Reid's Marlene as the Queen Mum on Spitting Image? So that's why, you know, the Queen Mum spoke like that. And I recently discovered, because a friend of mine's a biographer of Beryl Reid, she knew about it.
Yeah.
And she was sort of right on the edge of a damehood, and she was worried that the palace might think that she was doing the voice, and therefore she wouldn't get well-deserved damehood.
Have you ever tricked anybody on the telephone doing impressions?
Yes, at the House of Commons once. I was at the bar. I don't go very often, but it was years and years ago, when Mrs Thatcher was the Prime Minister, and the telephone rang. Is it Annie's bar? Is it one
Stranger's Bar?
Stranger's Bar. I can't remember which one it was. But it was and everybody knew it. The bar knew I was in. They said, "Go on, do it."
Yeah.
So I picked up the phone. The Prime Minister. You just funny noises at the end, and then it disappeared.
Wow, they got some plaudits.
That was quite fun.
Got some plaudits over that.
We never discovered who it was. Could have been Ronald Reagan.
It could have been, yeah, it could have been. So I guess, you know, you look at the characters, the politicians in the 80s and 90s, it was a bit easier for you to do these impressions because you had real characters. But fast forward 30-odd years, it must be more difficult, surely.
Well, back in the 80s, we were gifted with people like Roy Hattersley. I mean, it was called Spitting Image, and therefore he was a perfect... he was a perfect character for Spitting Image because he was the only character who actually did any spitting. And I met him a few times, and he was a great guy because he said to me, "Don't you sometimes feel guilty that you are mocking somebody with this speech impediment?" And I said, no, I do not feel guilty because you are a politician and you deserve all you get. and he agreed with me on that, and he understood that tradition. But if you're going to be a politician, you're going to get flack.
You're going to get flack. A little bit of mocking's not too bad. We're going to do some more mocking now, Steve, because we've got Wokey of the Week, and this is where we pick 3 woke organisations or people that's done something really ridiculous throughout the week. So Wokey 1 on my list is Tate Britain, and they've decided to place gender reassignment books in a children's library. Just hold that thought.
Right, okay.
The second one is unbelievable. Wokey 2, a woman has hit out at a mother who refuses to kill her daughter's knits because of her vegan lifestyle. Now, knits we used to call them when I was at school. These are like little headlights, aren't they? We used to have the nurse come around and ferret around in your hair. So depending on whereabouts in the country, right, it's either or knits. And at school they used to be ferreting through. So and Wokey number 3 is staff at a leading Surrey university have been encouraged to ditch phrases like black sheep, black bull, and Indian summer. Now then, Mrs. Thatcher, what do you think to them?
Oh, goodness me. I think I'm going to leave the choice to the perfect knit nurse in the world.
Okay.
And that would be Anne Widdecombe. Because if you're going to have a knit nurse that comes along to a school and makes people line up in a long line, then gets the comb out and goes through there, look, there's a knit there, go stand over there, I think that Anne Widdecombe would be the perfect knit nurse, and I'm going to go for the knit nurse.
Oh, there you go. I've got a trophy here, Steve. So, the knit lady, if you're looking, you are Wokey of the Week, thanks to Steve here. He's picked you up. What a brilliant impression that was, Steve. I mean, the Anne Widdecombe one, I think that's probably my favourite.
Well, she's a great joy. I met her as well.
Yeah.
And I said, and I said, do you know that your voice, you've got 2 voices, you break up? She said, yes, I'm aware of that. And I said, the only other person who does that is Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson has the same voice, having, up and down. And she had no idea who Homer Simpson was.
You know what? I wish we got more than 10 minutes on this, Steve. It's absolutely brilliant. But look, don't go away, because next time we're going to be joined by the brilliant GB News presenter, Charlie Peters. We've got Simon Damchuk. We've got Emma Best. Who else we've got coming on? We've got Lars Swan, who's the chairman of the Windsor Conservatives.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the live desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, and still with me is Simon Danchuk. We've also got Lars Swan of the Windsor Conservatives. He's the chairman of Windsor Conservatives, and Emma Best, who sits on the London Assembly. But I've got this brilliant young man with me today, Charlie Peters. He works on GB News. What's your job title, Charlie?
I'm the GB News Investigative presenter, so I run the investigations team at the broadcast.
Okay, so I have watched some of your work recently. You really get to the nitty-gritty of things and doing some good work, proper journalism. What have you been working on recently?
So we work on stories that we think have the most interest in the general public, but are underserved by the other broadcasters and papers. So we started off, when we started this brand, we looked at, firstly, the grooming gang scandal in the country. We had an 18-month investigation. Film came out in February. We were in Rochdale, we were in Rotherham, we were in Telford, and it inspired some government action. So we make no qualms about being journalists who are very interested in outcomes. We want to make a difference, and that means deep diving into serious stories that really matter to people.
Yeah. So I guess going back to when I was probably your age, a little bit younger, I think that journalists were better. I thought they was more skilled. I thought they had a better social conscience. They did more of this investigation stuff. They would go undercover and reveal things to the public, and we had numerous programmes on at night time where Cook Report was a really good one, you know. But these days, I think some of our journalists are cut and paste. They're out to get you, to catch you out. They got you, journalists. Why do you think that is?
Well, I'm also interested in catching people out, but I do it with serious work, not through just
But catching the right people
Yeah,
out.
Who's the right person? Anyone. There's no fear and no favour with GB News Investigates. We go after anyone we think there's a legitimate story to go after. So recently we've got rid of a Bengali Islamist who came over to Britain, who we followed very closely. Nobody else wanted to follow this guy, I think, often because they're very nervous about covering these stories. More recently,
why would a journalist that's worth the salt be concerned about doing that?
Well, there are accusations that people make about Islamophobia in some stories, and also, security fears. People get very, very nervous about putting their head above the parapet with some people, but thankfully GB News is a very security conscious broadcaster and we haven't had any worries so far. But I mean, going back to what you're saying about other journalists and not covering some stories, I think, back in the day there was more money in this game.
Yes.
And there was more long form programming dedicated to this work. Nowadays, often with the internet and a lot of sensationalist coverage, people are only interested in one line, an opinion here and there, and it takes a lot of investment and a lot of hard work to do serious work over a long period of time. It took 18 months to get that first hour out.
So I guess a lot of us, we're all guilty of headline grabbing, I suppose, looking for those clicks on social media. But surely when you're investigating something like the grooming scandal, I mean, that must get to you sometimes in your head at night. When you lay in bed at night thinking about it, some horrible things there to think about.
It was quite with me when I was first asked this question. I hadn't really reflected on it before.
Okay.
And I was slightly nervous that I might be a bit psychopathic and I'd be hearing all these horrible stories and it wasn't actually affecting me in that way. But I think when I thought about it more seriously, the reason why I think that's been the case is that any kind of bravery that you feel covering these stories pales in comparison to the whistleblowers and the survivors and the ordinary people who come to you with these stories of their lives and what they've endured. And you can't really put into perspective how it makes you feel with what's actually happened.
So I guess the sense of satisfaction after doing something like that sort of outweighs the problems that lay on your mind whilst doing it.
Well, and also it's really incredible to see people feeling the support from GB News when we run one of these stories to show that their voices matter, that they're listened to, that they're heard. And that's true not just for the grooming gang scandal, but for so many other stories that we've covered.
Okay, Charlie, I think what we're going to do now is go over to our panel of, we've got Emma, we've got Lars, and we've got Simon. Right, I think we're going to go to Lars first. Lars, you've heard what Charlie's had to say. I'm a bit cynical about journalists these days. I'm a bit sentimental for going back in the day all the time. So what do you think to modern day journalism?
Well, there's a lot of people who think they're journalists but aren't journalists. There's a lot of people have blogs who suddenly, it's like micro-local journalism. They think they're journalists but not really that good at it. Some of the newspapers, the quality of journalism is not great. I was always a great fan of the Cook Report, and I think it's, by far we should bring that back because that was a great show.
There's Charlie doing
Charlie, maybe Charlie's the new Roger Cook.
One step at a time, team. One step at a time.
Emma.
Yeah, I think actually what Charlie said there about, there's just so much news out there. It's so easy for people to think they've seen the news or they think they've seen an investigative report all the way through because they saw a 10-second TikTok. So I think there's a lot to be said about bringing journalism back. And actually, to come back to the point we raised in the yes-no question in the quiz about should the BBC be a subscription service? And one of the reasons I answer yes is because when we talk about independent journalism, can you really have independent journalism and good journalism? Because journalists should have views. Journalists should be out there digging data up and looking to uncover what's going on. And so actually I think if you have a wide variety of views and journalists like Charlie going out there and looking into what matters to people, then that's important.
Simon, I want to come to you. Just before we come to you, I would imagine that when you was a Member of Parliament, pretty much like me, come under a lot of scrutiny from certain journalists, and there's been certain stories printed about you, and a lot of stories printed about me, and when you read them sometimes you think, well, my goodness, I didn't say that, I didn't do that, I was not in that place. Simon.
There's a lot of inaccuracy in some of the reporting that goes on. There's no doubt about that. And I think that's always been the case. Picking up on something that Charlie said there, I mean, there was more money in the game in years gone by. But I think you can still do a lot, as GB News do, a lot of investigative journalism on a fairly limited budget. And then in contrast, you've got the BBC, like you mentioned, Emma, and The Guardian, who have loads of money. And yet they're really cumbersome in terms of the investigations that they do and don't achieve as much, and yet they've got lots more money. So I think newcomers like GB News are a breath of fresh air in terms of doing more investigative stuff.
Laws, BBC subscription service?
I think the World Service should be free at the point of delivery, but I think everything else should be subscription.
Why World Service?
Because the World Service, I think, provides a very good value service across the world for British nationals.
And who would pay for it?
The government.
you mean us?
We would pay for it, but we would, but only the World Service. The World Service would be a paid for service by the government. The rest of it would be subscription based.
Okay, thanks panel, that was absolutely fascinating. Could talk about that all day, and I think, Simon, we need a private conversation about some of this these naughty people in journalism that print these stories that are just not true. But look, this show's about talking to real people, and there is a guy that comes on this show called Gary the Cabbie, and we're going to go to him next because every single week he speaks plain common sense, and the GB News viewers absolutely love him. So I'm back on the road with Gary Fisher, Gary the Cabbie. He speaks common sense. He's dripping with common sense. So, Gary, I guess this week we saw the youths on Regent Street in London, thieving, being arranged through social media. What's going off, Gary?
Lee, I was up there last night, 24 hours before TikTok had put it out there for them to go and do it. The mayor had 24 hours to deal with this. It happened. The police turned up. He put his officers at risk. No riot vans, no dogs, no horses. They run right along Regent Street and Oxford Street.
Yeah.
Once again, he's put his officers at risk. Lee, while I'm on here, can I please issue the mayor a challenge? I want to challenge the mayor. I will pick him up from his home, free of charge. I won't even put our meter on. I will pick him up after midnight, and I will take him round the whole of his London that he is in charge of and show him how it has become a lawless London. The once great city of London is now lawless.
So there you go, Mayor Con. Gary the Cabbie has got a challenge for you. But we've got Last Orders next with Claire Brockett, Towie mum and former cabbie driver.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Well, it's time for last orders, and from one cabbie to an ex-cabbie, got Claire Brockett, also a Towie mum. What's a Towie mum?
An ex-Towie mum as well. So my daughter's on Towie. I used to do it with her. I don't do it no more.
The Only Way is Essex.
Yes.
I've got to, honest confession, never watched it, but I've heard it's a great show.
That's all right. I won't hold it against you.
So Claire, you was an ex-cabbie.
Yes.
There's a reason you're an ex-cabbie. Why is that?
Well, I stopped being a cabbie just before lockdown, to be honest. And it was basically, back then we had the issue with Uber, and I just found that London was saturated. I was like driving around London. Not only was there like just, you know, private hire stickers and vehicles everywhere, making it difficult, but I was noticing as well overnight, and I think the issue's still there.
Yeah.
You was getting cabbies coming down clearly from other cities like Nottingham, Leicester, because they're not even hiding it. If you look at the number plates or the plates on the back, they're from different cities. So to me, it was just unsustainable. I couldn't do it. And to be blunt with you, I think I had burnout with cabbie. I just, yeah.
So I guess with the Uber, very handy for people like me that work in London. Just get on your phone, zap it, within 2 minutes, is it Uber there?
Yeah.
And we're not really bothered.
Yeah.
But for black cab drivers, it's their living it's eating into.
It was. I mean, look, I can understand Uber drivers doing it. You know, it's easy. You just download an app and you're gone. But for me, I'm very passionate about London cab drivers and the process that they go through. You know, it's a rite of passage, and it's been going on for a very, very long time. It's a British institution. I think more should be done to support it.
Okay,
really.
so Gary the cabbie we talk to every week on the show. He's a legend in his own lunchtime. Well, he thinks he's a legend. He is a legend. He speaks common sense, but he tells me, he talks to me about these LTNs, the low traffic neighbourhoods, which I knew little about when I first started this job, and also the ULEZ expansion, because I believe the ULEZ is actually not just affecting people in London who voted for Mayor Khan, it's actually affecting people on the outskirts and outer London that didn't get a vote.
I didn't vote for him, and I live in Essex, but his policies are affecting people where I live. I now work in the car trade. I sell cars, and I get people coming in. Just for example, one of the many, many stories that I could tell you of people that it's affecting. There was an elderly lady coming to me the other day. She had a 19-year-old car, bless her, and she was like, "I don't want to sell it." Because it was my late husband's. Yeah. There were so many memories in that vehicle, and we were sitting there trying to work out how she could stay in this vehicle if she could afford to, and obviously she couldn't. She visits her friends twice a week to go swimming, and her grandchildren, and my heart broke for her. But like I said, that's just one of many customers that I see in that situation.
So I guess when Mayor Khan says to this little old lady with a 19-year-old Mercedes, here's £2,000.
Yeah.
You can go and buy a brand new Tesla at 40 grand. That's not cutting no ice, is it?
Well, not really, because it's not going to give her back the memories that she's losing. She's actually selling memories. Yeah. She's having to get rid of that because he thinks that, the air in Essex should be cleaner, apparently.
And we've got a great voluntary sector in this country as well. People that volunteer on a daily basis. They go to, whether it's an advice bureau, whether it's homeless hostels, whatever it is, they go out and volunteer every single day. They can't do that now because they've been charged £12.50 a day.
Exactly. I had a lady, I couldn't believe it. And to be honest with you, because it sounds a bit bad, but it's like I couldn't understand what she was saying, that she cuts through, I think it was like Aveley in Essex.
Yeah.
And she was like, I have to pay like £12.50, and it just baffled me that I never even registered that would be an issue, to be honest, until she said it to me, and this was only the other day, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. She was just passing through, like you said, and it was just, it's affecting so many people, so many families, not just businesses.
So it's time for On the Pull, and the lovely Claire's going to pull a pint for us, but first we need our judge, the very able Steve Nallon. Coming in, please, Steve. So, Claire, the rules are quite simple.
Right.
Pint pot, there's a pump, pour us a pint.
Right, no pressure.
No pressure. No pressure.
I haven't done this for years.
One of these many characters that Steve does is going to talk us through. And then...
no!
What have we done? What have we done?
I work behind the bar.
It's full of it.
It's great. It's great.
That's dire.
blame the barrel.
No, I'm blaming the barrel. I can't do that. What is that? Look at that.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
No,
Never give up, Claire. Never give up. Never give up.
It's a milkshake.
Never give up.
I'm blaming the pump.
And actually, this
a bad workman blames the tools.
No, this was actually how we used to do
Let's
it.
have a look. Let's have a look.
No way.
Come on, Claire. Come on.
I love
there
it.
You go.
I love it, love. I love it.
That's terrible. And I used to be a barmaid and all.
It's the pint milkshake.
That's
a new invention.
What would Mrs. Thatcher make of that?
Oh, goodness me. I think I would have left it to Dennis to decide, I think, on that one.
Well, we've got to give her a score, Mrs. T.
Please
What do you
don't.
think out of 10?
10! Number 10!
Number 10?
That's when I used to live. That's
Okay.
the number I always remember. 10!
That's terrible.
It is terrible,
I
but
can never
Mrs.
show
T
my
saying
face
10.
in a pub again.
Claire, we've got to go 10. And I'm pretty sure that the
I love
previous
Tom Skinner. It's great.
week's contestants will be pretty furious with that. I mean, that is, without doubt, Mrs. T, that's the worst one we've seen on the poll. It's a shocker.
No, but the
It's an absolute shocker.
scoreboard doesn't lie.
It's trying it, look.
It's terrible.
Have you actually still got froth?
It tastes nice.
Oh.
What's the problem?
Well, look,
Lovely.
absolutely brilliant, guys. So funny, Claire, that was. Don't give up your day job.
No,
So,
clearly.
I think you're far better at selling cars than pulling points.
I think so.
And Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. You've got a bit of a drink problem there, but you've took the head off now, haven't you? Yeah. But thanks, guys, for joining me. It was absolutely brilliant. Thank you. So massive thanks for watching Lee Anderson's Real World this week, and massive thanks to all my brilliant guests. Look, if you want us to come to your pub, just supply us a room and we'll fill it full of common sense. But you know what? I'll be back at the same time next week, Friday at 7 p.m. with some brilliant guests, Mrs. Thatcher.
Including, I believe, Mike Freer, MP for Golders Green, Steve Tuckrell, MP for Uxbridge, Sir Vince Cable, Stephen Pound, Charlie Mullins, and a live audience.
Well, we're joining us.
We'll be joined. Not me, I won't be there.
Tune in next week at 7 p.m. on Friday on GB News.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Greg Dewhurst, and looking at the weekend, could be summarised by sunshine and scattered showers, particularly heavy on Saturday. And looking at the bigger picture, we can see why this area of low pressure moves in for the weekend, increasing the wind strengths, increasing the risk of showers across the north and the west in particular. Out there through the rest of Friday evening, not too bad. There'll be some clear spells before dusk, and then overnight we'll see some outbreaks of rain pushing in across parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, which could be heavy at times. Temperatures generally a little lower than recent nights, so a little more comfortable for sleeping, but still 14 or 15 for many to start Saturday morning. Better the sunshine first thing across eastern parts of England, northeast Scotland. But these bands of rain slowly push their way eastwards through the day as the area of low pressure pushes in from the Atlantic. Some of this rain could be heavy and perhaps thundery at times across northern England, but there will be some sunny spells in between, and that will lift temperatures to around 23 degrees towards the southeast. Breezier conditions towards the northwest here, 20 or 21 as a maximum temperature. Into Sunday, low pressure still in charge. The winds do ease and there will be less showers around, but fairly cloudy picture. Some bright or sunny spells, a scattering of showers, and temperatures once again reaching the high teens to low 20s. Into the beginning of next week, it stays unsettled. Further rain on Monday, but signs of something drier and brighter by Tuesday.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.